valuation is bar none the most important skill in commercial real estate brokerage. The reason being, if you do not price a property properly, it will not move. The market is kind of a living, breathing organism. And if you are unable to figure out what the price for a piece of property is, it will sit and sit and sit until either the person fires you and the listing goes expired, or you lower it to a price that the market will respond to. Very, very simple, guys. Okay. So it's very, very important that we understand some of the theory behind it and understand what to do. Okay. So here's what we got. So underwriting, right, is what we call the process. It's the process of quantitatively evaluating a real estate investment for its viability and potential. Basically, how to put price tags on properties. Very simple, right? Price tags on properties. Okay. Now, what I'm going to show you here, guys, is two versions of the same formula. Okay. We're going to show you the stripped down version, and then we're going to show you the more complex version. Okay. The stripped down version is very simple. Money comes in, money goes out, whatever's left over is your net income. Okay. So you got income, you got expenses, you subtract your expenses from your income, and whatever's left over is what's called your net income. Pretty straightforward. Now, we're going to go a little bit more in depth. So, when we're talking about an income producing property, you have what's called rental income. Pretty straightforward. It's the income that you get from rents. Now, we also have what's called additional. So now think about it, folks, and I want everybody to engage with this. I want everybody to put in what they think it is, and whether if you're in the Facebook in the comments, or if you're on Zoom with the chat, right? Tell me what you guys think are above and beyond rents. What are some ways that a building can create additional income? How can you get additional income from a building? Let me know in the chat. Let's see what we got. Come on, guys. We got this. What do we got? What do we got?
Thank you.
All right. And as you guys are coming in, I see some people coming in a couple minutes after the hour. Just do me a favor and make sure that you are muted. Okay, what does everybody think? Laundry? Yep, love it. Parking? Yes, awesome. Good stuff. Phil says laundry, parking. Yes, 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 exactly. Okay. Anything else you can think of? We got laundry, we got parking. What are some other things that can generate income? You know, what about if you're in an office building? What do people like to do about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Want to go grab for a Snickers, right? Boom, vending machines, right? That's another way. There's a lot of different things that can bring money in, right? But those are a few good examples. So that's your additional income. So when you add your rental income plus your additional income, that's going to give you your potential gross income. So far, so good. Now, here's a very important part, okay? No building is ever 100% full 100% of the time. So, which means you are also, by the same token, not going to be able to collect all the money that's owed to you 100% of the time. So what you have to do is, even no matter how perfect an asset is, no matter how great the tenants are, over a long enough period of time, sooner or later, you're going to have a month of vacancy. Sooner or later, you're not going to be able to collect rents on something. So what we have is what's called a vacancy and collection loss allowance. And it's usually expressed as a percentage, right? And it's basically, you know that in this submarket and this property type, you're likely to have, I don't know, 5%, 7%, 9%, whatever that might be, you know. Different types, property types are a bit different. You know, when the economy is going up and down, that number will kind of expand and contract depending on market conditions. But bottom line is you have to account for the vacancy and collection loss. Now, here's a little pro tip, right? When you guys are underwriting a property, I don't care how the property is currently operating from a vacancy and collection standpoint. Here's what I mean. You might have a landlord that has the property and it's at 100% full. And if it's 100% full, he's going to say, you know what, this thing is completely full. I don't want to hear anything about a vacancy and collection loss. Guess what, Mr. Landlord? If your property is 100% full, 100% of the time, means your rents are too cheap. You with me, guys? There's a sweet spot, and there's two basically types of landlords. One that will keep a property full at all costs, and no matter what you do, it's full, it's full, it's full, and they keep it just a little bit below the market. And there's the other type that will kind of bump and bump and bump. And when someone screams when they squeal, they'll push them out and put someone new in. They always want to be achieving the market rent. So usually kind of like type A and type B with regard to landlords. Now, the important thing to understand is, guys, it doesn't matter what how the building is operating from the current vacancy, because that's good. But what's more important to understand is how the building is operating in relation to the submarket. If you're in a submarket where it's normally 8% vacancy and the landlord has a 2% vacancy, guess what? On average, when that building transfers and goes to the next person, they're on average likely to have an 8% vacancy rate. You guys with me so far? Okay. So it's very, very important, guys, to take into account for vacancy and collections what the submarket is doing, not that particular building, because landlords can be underpricing things just to keep them full. And that's not going to be an accurate picture for the potential buyer. Does that make sense, everybody? So far, so good? Hang on one second. I'm going to let some folks in here. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. One sec. Okay. Cool. Okay. Everyone's hopping in. Sweet. All right. So, guys, next part we're going to go to, right? When you take the effective gross income, which comes from subtracting the vacancy and collection loss from the potential gross income, you are left with the effective gross income. Then subtract out your operating expenses, and you're left with net operating income, and that is your NOI. That is the grail of everything, right? NOI, net operating income. Now let's talk for a second about operating expenses. Guys, do me a favor. In the chat, can you do me a favor? Let's see, guys, as you're hopping on, can you do me a favor and make sure you're muted as you folks are hopping on? I can't have it on my end because I have two things going on here, but if we can, let's see. No, I don't want to mute me. Can't do that. But yeah, thanks for letting me know, Patrick. Yep. How are we good now? Give me a thumbs up. Let me know if we're good. Yeah. Sorry, I've got like 3 things going on here at once. Everyone seems to be muted, but me. I think we should be cool. Cool. All right. Awesome. So now, net operating income, that's the holy grail of everything, right? But operating expenses get subtracted out before you get to your net operating income. Can anybody tell me what makes an operating expense an operating expense? What are the two things that you use to describe operating expenses? There's two words that begin with R that will tell you whether an expense is a capital expense or an operating expense. Operating expenses, they begin with two R's. Can anybody tell me what that? I'll give you a hint. The first one is regular, okay? Why? Because an operating expense, it's like a bill. You have it over and over again, okay? The next one is, Patrick hit it right on the head, recurring, okay? Guys, what it comes down to is operating expenses are expenses that come with the property on an ongoing basis. The property taxes, okay? The maintenance. Guys, do me a favor, throw in the chat some examples of operating expenses. What do you think goes into the operation of an income producing property? Give me some examples. All right, guys, let's see what we can throw out. There's going to be a bunch of these. There's a whole ton. So let's see what we got. What do we got? Tell me. All right, we got management. Love it. That's good. Hey, Cindy, how are you? We got utilities. Absolutely. Okay, good. These are things that are ongoing. Property management. Yep. Okay, utilities. Yep. If there's outdoor light, anything that comes out of the landlord's pocket and takes away from the bottom line or the NOI, that's going to be an operating expense, right? So think about it, guys. What else can there be? What happens in Detroit in December, January, February, right? Snows, right? Snow plowing is going to be a big one. In the summer, you got to cut the lawn, landscaping, okay? Insurance, absolutely. What happens, the government, what do they do every quarter? They want their property taxes, right? So these are all things. So they are regular and they are recurring. That's an operating expense. Let's talk about the other side of things where that's what's called a capital expense, the other type of expenses. Now, can anyone give me an example of something that's not regular and not recurring? What can you think of that happens in buildings and income producing properties that is not a regular or recurring thing? What's something that might need to be changed every 20 years? What's something that might need to be changed every 20 years? Anybody? Anybody? Roofing, love it, absolutely. Okay, what's that? What's the thing you drive on outside? That ever get potholes? You know, parking lot areas, right? That's the thing. Furnaces, love it, love it. Yes, you guys are getting it. Yes, roofing, furnaces, air conditioning units. Okay, let's say people take and they change the windows out, right? Anything having to do with the kind of improvement of a property that's not regular and recurring, then you're going to have that, right? So very, very important, guys. So, let's continue on to the next slide. So very, very important. So like I mentioned, rental income is rent from tenants. Additional income, laundry, parking, etc. Operating expenses can be taxes, insurance, lawn maintenance, CAM, snow removal, utilities, so on and so forth. Okay, very, very important you understand this because this is the formula that you will use every single time you underwrite a property. So once you have a property and you figured out what the net operating income is, you know, you put everything through its paces and you understand, you know, what the operating expenses and so on and so forth, and subtract them out, then you're left with the net operating income. Now, here's the thing. What we then take, we take the net operating income and we apply what's called a capitalization rate to it. Now, a capitalization rate is nothing more than the relationship between an income producing property's net operating income and its value. Very, very simple. Net operating income and its value. So if the value is $1 million and the net operating income is 100,000, guess what? 100 times 10 equals $1 million. Therefore, the cap rate is 10%, right? Very, very simple, very, very straightforward. Okay, so here's the formula, guys. When you want to figure out what the cap rate is, you take the NOI and you divide it by the purchase price. Okay, in this case, $70,000 divided by $1 million. That's going to show you that the relationship between the two is a 7% cap rate. You guys with me there on that one? Makes sense? Yep. Smash the like button. Those of you in the Facebook group, smash that like button. Let me know. Let me know if you can hear me, if you're with me. All right. Cool. Okay. So if you want to figure out the cap rate, right? There's a formula. We tell everybody, ask Irv, IRV, right? He's our friend. He's going to help us. Irv always knows. You know why? Because Irv is a formula that's used when valuing income producing properties. So, right. So if you know 2 of the 3 variables, just like regular old algebra, right? You can figure out the third. Okay. So the 3 variables are I, R, and V. Now, I is income, R is rate, and V is value. Okay, so very, very important to understand, guys. You know, there's the relationship between the two. And as you guys are hopping on, if you can do me a favor and make sure you're muted for those of you that are just hopping on, right? So the 3 variables are I, R, and V. So the way they're expressed, I is income, such as net operating income. R is rate, aka the cap rate, right? And the V is the value, the purchase price or the asking price of a property. Okay, so now how do we chop them up so we can figure out all the different the 3 combinations, right? For one, if you know the rate and the value, you can figure out the income. Okay, so for instance, if a building is worth $1 million and the cap rate is 8%, okay, then it's 0.08 times $1 million, and that's going to leave you with the NOI. So if someone says to you, hey, can you do me a favor and figure out how much net operating income I'm going to put in my pocket with this building, and you know what the purchase price is, you know what the cap rate is, easy peasy lemon squeezy. You take the 0.08, you multiply it by the property value or the asking price, and at the sale price, the cap rate is then is 8%, and the income would be $80,000. That makes sense for everybody so far? You guys with me? Okay. Should be pretty straightforward, but a lot of people until they see where this comes from, it's kind of like a little bit mystifying, right? Okay. The other way of looking at things is if you know the value and the income, you can figure out the rate. So as an example, the same building is worth $1 million and the income is $75,000. Then what you do is to solve for the rate, you have 75,000 divided by $1 million. And then what you're going to learn is the cap rate. Remember, it's the value, it's the relationship between the value and the NOI is going to give you 7.5%. right? Does that make sense for everybody? Okay. And now we're going to go into the third way that people you can figure out the value of a property. And it's if you know the income and you know the rate, you can figure out the value. So for instance, the same building that we keep talking about, if the same building is producing annually $100,000 of net operating income or NOI, and you know that the cap rate in the area is an 8%, right? That's what like all the other buildings are selling for. Then if someone wants to buy with a like cap rate to other properties that have sold in the area, then the way you figure that out is you have your NOI and you divide by the local area cap rate, and that's going to give you a value of 1.25 million. Okay, guys, very, very simple. The way you use this is if an investor says, hey, I want an 8% rate of return, you find out what the NOI of the property is. You take the NOI of the property, divide it by whatever rate of return that the buyer wants, and it's going to tell you that the building for that person's particular investment criteria, it's going to give you a 1.25 million property value. Everybody with me so far? Guys, on Facebook, give me a little slam that like button, slam that heart button. Let me know that you're with me. And if anybody has any questions, now's a good time, right? What I try to do is I try to take these things slowly and very systematically so that you're able to understand what constitutes value in a property, right? So, like I mentioned, guys, what we covered is very, very straightforward, okay? We covered what goes into figuring out the value of a property. We covered what numbers are calculated and how they're calculated. We went over why vacancy rates occur, why collection rates have to be there. We also went over what operating expenses are, okay, what capital expenses are. Now I'm going to go off on a slight tangent about operating expenses and capital expenses. I'm going to give you, this is your money's worth right here, right? This is fun. So when you have a building and you are taking that building and you're taking it to market, and let's say you're the buying agent, right? The value to the seller is not going to be the same value to the buyer. Why? Because oftentimes a seller will say, oh, my expenses are this, my expenses are that, yada, yada, yada. But that person's been there for a very, very long time. So let's say Mr. Smith bought that building in 2000, 22 years ago, and here he's looking to sell it now. Oftentimes the property taxes don't keep up with the kind of market value, right? Especially in the last couple of years, the market value has gone crazy. So what we wind up having is we wind up seeing a pretty big jump from when the buyer purchases the property to the second year when the property gets reassessed and the assessed value goes up. Guess what? Those taxes are going up pretty considerably, right? So it's very, very important, guys, extremely important for you to understand that when you wind up having an increase in taxes in year two, it's going to impact the cap rate. So when you are underwriting a property for a potential buyer, it's very, very important that you take into account the chances that the taxes are highly likely to go up in year two. Now, if the owner owned the building for like 3 years or 5 years, then they're not going to go up that much. But the longer they have owned the building, the more likely the taxes are to go up in year two, more likely the taxes are going to shoot up and crush the not only the net operating income, but also going to crush the cap rate or the cap rate that the buyer was looking for. So if you're representing a buyer, make sure you're looking out for them and you plan for what those taxes are going to be. Here in Miami-Dade County, we have access to the county records, and you can put in a folio number, and you can put in an estimated sale price, and you can figure out, you can get a ballpark of what those taxes will likely be. And it's very, very helpful when you're underwriting, guys. I would recommend, depending on where you guys are, check out and see, excuse me, check out and see what, if your county has a tax estimator, if you go on the county website, you'll be able to have an idea of what's going on, right? So that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to leave you guys with was when you're selling income producing properties, a lot of things are happening, right? You're trying to figure out operating expenses, capital expenses and so forth. What's very important when you're looking at the expenses that an owner gives you, very important that you only include operating expenses. If he says, oh, well, I just changed the roof last year and I just did this and I leased my wife's car out of here and I do this. It's very important, guys, for you to be able to understand how to pick these things apart, because just remember the current owner's NOI is very unlikely to be the new owner's NOI. Taxes are likely to change. Maybe the management style is likely to change. Maybe the write-offs that one person uses versus the other are likely to change. So it's very important for you to understand when you are underwriting properties that you are doing it from a conservative kind of like worst case scenario, as opposed to pie in the sky, best case scenario, like sellers oftentimes like to. Okay, guys, if this is helpful for you, guys, do me a favor and hit the like button. Type a 1 in the chat if this is helping you, if this makes sense, if you learned something today, you got some value out of it, right? And also, if anyone has any points of clarification that they would like, let me know. All right. Let me just scroll down. I got some comments here. Boom, boom, boom. Yep. Okay, parking lot. Yep, great. Yep. Cool. Awesome. Yep. Beautiful. All right, guys. If this was helpful, and if this is just the tip of the iceberg, ask some of our students, right? This is just getting started. We go very, very in depth. We get you to the mastery level when it comes to underwriting properties. Why? Because it's so important to underwrite properties properly. If you're not valuing them properly, they are never, ever going to sell. They're going to sit on the market, and you're going to have frustrated clients, and you're not going to put a lot of money in the bank. So what I recommend to you guys is learn somewhere from someone that has done this before and can teach you how to do this on a mastery level. And when I say mastery, I don't mean, yeah, like I recognize that, like I've seen that, like I could do that on the back of a cocktail napkin. I mean, you can walk, talk, chew bubble gum, and the words will just pop out of your mouth, and you'll be able to explain this on a high level to either a very sophisticated investor or a very unsophisticated investor, because you're going to deal with everything in between, right? It's very important that you're able to articulate the value of the property and where it's derived from, okay? So if you guys are looking to do this on a higher level, if you're looking to take listings that are actually going to sell, okay, we can help you do that. CRE basic training, we have a 6-month training course where we show you how to get the meetings, how to value the properties, how to pitch the listing so that you can take properties at a price that they're actually going to sell.